Honey, what was that? Didn't you say you sounded like Hank Williams?
Yeah, no, you don't think that sounds like Hank Williams?
No. No. Do you?
Oh, of course. You haven't heard this story, no.
Oh, okay, well. Okay. Okay, our first guest this evening is local poet Brianna Flavin. Brianna received a Henry Hoynes Fellowship from the University of University of Virginia and graduated with an MFA in poetry in 2014. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Hangman Literary Journal, Rock and Sling, Quiddity International, and others. Poems, for those of you who don't know, are different than what you might expect. Like, get this. Poems don't have to rhyme anymore. I know. Back in my day, the only thing poems had to do was rhyme. So Brianna, come up here.
I'm here. I'm here.
I know.
Hello,
I saw you. Jeez. Okay, so what have you got first for us, darling?
Okay, well, I was going to read a poem called Boreal, Spider. I really like spiders a lot, and I wound up writing them into my poems a lot, probably because I was always, chasing them around as a kid and, learning things from them, I guess, about the world.
Okay. What did you learn from spiders?
That's a good question. I'll read the poem. Maybe that will answer it.
Okay, I think so.
Okay. Okay, so this poem is called Boreal Spider. I pulled a blue note flat from water, one framed pane of lake, with knitting needle legs, and my body's blood yarn, fairer than lace, heady as it stretched from me. Imagine all your thought swirling to rope in your belly, the coils and knots it makes. Imagine rigging up the map of your mind and snagging landscape. I wanted that job to do every night, by silence and spruce needle, to be stung by morning at the center of myself, written out, trembling.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, I'm glad you did that poem, because you hopefully will bring to light something that has cooked my turkey for a number of years now. So, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a couple Brady's short of a bunch. But really, I've spent a lot of time around asbestos. But what are you gonna do? We were sleeping on asbestos pillows, wearing asbestos pantyhose, and sprinkling asbestos on our Wheaties. So, something was bound to happen, but enough of the old days. Why is it that poems don't have to rhyme anymore?
Right, well, I think because poetry had a different mission a long time ago. It began as a way to remember things. So, the oral traditions and the ballads and all the stuff that happened along many, many years ago, the mission was so that you'd remember and you'd have these kind of rhyming, sort of more like songs, really, to keep the information, straight. And then over time it kind of warped a little bit, but I think the biggest difference that I would say is I don't know, the aim of poetry now as compared to how it used to be, is people used to treat, in my opinion, language kind of like a horse that you train, that you ride, right? And you get it to do all these tricks, and you get it to carry the messages that you want, and you kind of use it. And that's not bad, not use it in a bad way, just use language as a tool to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Whereas I think poetry now is a lot more about exploration. And so instead of being the cowboy that trains the horse and goes to the rodeo, you're kind of more like a child climbing on the horse and seeing where it goes. Poets now use language as exploration of the self and of the world around you, and it's less about getting the horse to do what you want and more about seeing where the horse will kind of bring you.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. Hey, you know who else liked horses?
Who?
Hank Williams. Well, let's get back to it.
All right.
What's your next poem?
Second poem is called Sweet Hollow Cafe, November. Have any of you, raise your hand if you've been to Sweet Hollow? Oh,
Love that
okay,
place.
so maybe I served you at some point. I work there. Still, sort of have on and off. off for the past couple years, and so it's wound up working its way into lots of my poems. And so this one's kind of about November, and I was like, oh, that'll be such a bummer since it's springtime, but
Not.
yep. So, Sweet Hollow Cafe, November. The prairie falls, shawl around me while I sweep. On the other side of the glass, they're having coffee with apple tart. Fairest of things, look to us this winter. Steam rising from cars, houses of laundry, a last cloud of November broken into snow against the oat field. I wanted the sky tucked over me like gardener's burlap, to be uprooted like a radish into the next world. That field where I blessed the frost on this city, thinking it was all mine. The grit and the light were mine. The people and their hats were mine. The coneflower stalks, the shipping shutters, the cake crumbling in their mouths, mine. I once thought nothing could move me to give it back.
Wow, so actually, Henry, what do you think about all this not rhyming?
That's awesome. It's very,
You don't say.
Thanks, Henry.
Do your songs rhyme?
never, not once.
Huh. That's okay, well, okay. Well, I don't know what I think about it, but Bree, tell me, how do you come to write something like this? What's your process like?
Right, yeah, well, gosh, I always begin, I guess, in my mind in a place that I can visualize. So something like Sweet Hollow, you know, just thinking, I don't know, I guess that poem was kind of based off of like a moment where I was literally sweeping and I was like, oh, this is really, these things are happening around me. But I didn't actually write the poem remembering that moment until maybe like 2 years later. So I guess all the moments just go back there somewhere and then the horse finds them.
Well, that's wonderful, yeah.
That wasn't very descriptive, I'm sorry.
No, that's good though, that's good. I like the horse metaphors. Well, okay. So, why don't you bring it home? I understand you got one more for us.
Yeah. Okay, so this last poem, oh, well, since you're talking process, sometimes I do that by visualizing a place that I remember, and sometimes I create weird prompts and experiments for myself. And sometimes, this poem was written actually by a prompt that my husband suggested when we were doing like this exercise where I had to write a bunch of poems in like 10 minutes. So, you know, it was a nightmare, but this prompt turned into a really, really good poem, I thought. So, it's about the Tower of Babel. The prompt was write a poem like you're experiencing the birth of all the languages at the story of the Tower of Babel. So, here it goes. While Babel fell, we could have accomplished anything, we were saying. Silk pod tongues curling to cocoon in our mouths. You once said we'd build wings like this, people working together, study the kestrel, osprey, and ibis, fly to heaven, taste the wine, and back. All our committees disbanded and worthless. Fights crack across the street, someone felling the gardens of Cyprus, someone striking the scribes with a whip, someone pouring dark honey the whole Euphrates down. I wound through back alleys like script curving from a pen until I found you, took your tongue in mine, said with my body what I meant. I was watching two hummingbirds, thrum and shudder, a nectar center, pleasure in taste, pleasure in plump, whirring bodies, and that blur where wings should be.
I like how the poems hit me. You know, they hit me somewhere in here, and that's hard to find these days. Okay, so the rhyme thing is starting to rub off on me. I get it, I love it, it's nice. You've got some talent, darling, you really, really do.
Thank you.
I'm noticing a theme in the 3 poems you read for us. They all got to do with nature. That's nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I like nature too. I've always felt a deep sisterhood with Mother Nature, like we understand each other perfectly. Even this Minnesotan climate. Snow. Yeah, sure, I get it. Every single year, Mother Nature goes down for her long winter sleep, only to be woken up by Father Time cussing out Jack Frost for trying to bring winter back as soon as it leaves. Yeah, it's like I always told Manny, a lady needs her beauty sleep. If we don't get our beauty sleep, we can't be beautiful. Well, then you reach a point like me, and you just can't help but let your beauty pour out of you. But you get it. So tell me, what's the role of nature in your poems?
Yeah, well, gosh, Minnesota's a beautiful, beautiful place, and
Sure.
grew up here, and it all sort of sunk into me, I think. So, yeah, it was becoming difficult last year to write a poem that didn't have a lake in it, and I didn't necessarily want that to be always present in my poems, so I had to start experimenting a little bit more. But yeah, the woods here, especially, really impacted by a place in my childhood up in Ontario. So I write a lot about the landscape of Minnesota and Ontario, and I think it's gorgeous and super interesting, and you know, it's come to embody. I think we learn from our environments how to think about things, and we choose metaphors from the setting around us, from the things we know, and so especially those things that we grew up with that were always kind of a part of our scenery, always in our lives, is really an easy connection to, you know, to draw those lines, I guess, between them. Spiders, drawing lines between things, that's how spiders impacted me.
There we go, full circle, folks, full circle. You can't write this stuff. Wonderful, wonderful, dear. So what are you working on now? Have you got any readings coming up?
Oh yeah, well, the next reading that I'm going to be a part of that is in, I think it's the first Sunday in June at the Astor Cafe, for those of you that know that place, and I'll be reading with a couple other really awesome poets, one of whom actually mentored me. Her name is Amy Munson, so you definitely want to see that reading, absolutely for her, because she'll be fantastic. But yeah, I'm working on putting my first book together still. It's been a long process, and it will probably be even more of a long process from but that's what's underway.
What's your book called?
Oh, I don't know. Aunt Mauve. I don't know. That's the hardest part.
Well, yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, thank you so much. You are a beautiful person, and you write beautiful poetry, and it's okay that it doesn't rhyme. I don't want you to feel bad about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brianna Flavin. We always learn so much on this show. You know, you can live hundreds of years and still not know everything.